What if I told you that your thoughts aren't really yours? The decisions you make, the emotions you feel, even the opinions you swear are your own. They've been planted there. Every day, unseen forces are shaping your mind without you even realizing it. From the moment you wake up, your brain is being hacked by social media, news, advertising, even the people around you. And the scariest part? You don't even question it. But once you see the truth, you'll never think the same way again. Because in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to expose the hidden manipulation controlling you and show you how to break free. Are you ready? Let's begin. Think about this. When was the last time you had a thought that was truly yours? Not something you read online, not a reaction shaped by a headline, not an idea that popped into your mind after a conversation with someone else. A thought that belonged to you, untouched by outside influence. Hard to pinpoint, isn't it? That's because, from the moment you wake up, your brain is being flooded with noise, social media, news, conversations, advertisements. And it's not just background noise, it's something far more powerful. It's shaping you. Without realizing it, you've been conditioned to think a certain way. What's trending today becomes your new concern. What a celebrity says suddenly feels like it matters. An ad convinces you that you need something you never even thought about before. But here's where it gets worse. You don't just see these things, you absorb them. The emotions they spark, the outrage, the excitement, the fear, they don't just disappear. They stay, they build, they shape the way you see the world. And the scariest part? You're not choosing it. You think you are, but you're not. Ever noticed how after watching a few videos or reading a few posts, you start feeling a certain way without knowing why? A simple opinion starts turning into a full-blown belief. A minor concern suddenly feels like an urgent crisis. And over time, these thoughts become so deeply ingrained that you start to mistake them for your own. That's not an accident. That's programming. The truth is, your brain is being hijacked every single day. Not by some grand conspiracy, but by the world around you. The way content is designed, the way conversations are framed, even the way news is reported, it all plays into a system meant to pull you in and shape your mind without you even realizing it. But what if you could break free? What if you could reclaim your mind? The first step is simple, but most people never take it. It all starts with questioning your own thoughts. Where did this idea come from? Why do I feel this way about it? Is this really me? Or is it just something I've been fed so many times that I stopped questioning it? Because once you start asking those questions, you'll see something most people never do. You'll start noticing the patterns, the manipulation, the invisible strings that have been pulling you this whole time. Once you start questioning your thoughts, something unsettling happens. You begin to realize just how little of your thinking is actually yours. You start noticing how certain words, phrases, and ideas repeat themselves in your mind, almost like an echo. But where did they come from? Why do they feel so natural, as if you always believed them? Here's the truth. Your brain is wired for efficiency, not accuracy. It doesn't care if a thought is true. It only cares if it's been repeated enough times. That's why a lie told 1,000 times starts to feel like a fact. It's why certain beliefs, no matter how irrational, feel impossible to shake. Your brain craves familiarity. It trusts what it's seen over and over again. And the people who design the world around you know this. Think about advertisements. You don't have to actively watch a commercial for it to influence you. The colors, the music, the catchy slogans, they all slip into your subconscious. Weeks later, you suddenly crave that drink, that product, that experience. Not because you chose it, but because your brain has seen it so many times that it assumes it must be important. The same goes for the opinions you hold, the fears that keep you up at night, and even the way you react to situations. And it doesn't stop there. Social media? It's a mind trap. Every time you scroll, you're being trained to think in extremes, trained to crave quick hits of dopamine, trained to view the world in a way that benefits the platform. You ever notice how everything feels urgent, controversial, or shocking? That's not random. It's because content that triggers strong emotions, anger, fear, excitement, keeps you engaged. And the longer you stay engaged, the more you're exposed to the same ideas, reinforcing them until they feel like your own. It's like being trapped in a room where the same message plays over and over again. At first, you might question it, but after a while, it just becomes your reality. You stop questioning it, you start believing it, and before you know it, the thoughts running through your head, the ones that shape your confidence, your happiness, your choices, aren't even yours anymore. But here's the part that should really scare you. It's not just happening to you. It's happening to everyone. The people around you, the ones influencing your thoughts, they're also being programmed, which means the way they react to you, the way they judge you, even the way they treat you, it's all part of the same invisible system. So how do you escape? How do you start thinking for yourself again? The answer isn't easy, but it is possible. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. Once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Every conversation, every opinion, every reaction, you start wondering, is this really me? Or am I just repeating something I've been fed 100 times before? And once that thought enters your mind, something shifts. You start noticing the little things, the way news headlines are written to make you feel a certain way, the way social media rewards you for thinking in extremes, the way algorithms decide what you see and what you don't. But here's where it gets even scarier. It's not just about what you're shown. It's also about what's being hidden. Every single day you're being subtly guided, not just in what to believe, but in what to ignore. Your social media feed, carefully curated, your news recommendations, designed to reinforce your existing beliefs, not challenge them. Even your search results, filtered. The internet isn't an open book. It's a mirror, reflecting back exactly what it thinks you want to see. And the more you see it, the more you believe it. This is why breaking free is so hard. Because when you live inside a bubble, everything outside of it starts to feel wrong. Ever had that moment when someone shares an idea that completely goes against what you believe? That instant resistance? That feeling of no, that's not right? That's the programming. You weren't born with those beliefs. You were trained to hold on to them. And the stronger the emotion behind them, the harder they are to question. Think about it. How many of your beliefs were actually chosen? Did you sit down and logically decide what to believe about money, success, relationships, happiness? Or did you just pick them up from the world around you? Parents, teachers, movies, books, social media. Your entire worldview has been built piece by piece, shaped by forces you never even noticed. And if you've never questioned it, then how do you know it's even real? But here's where it gets interesting. The second you start questioning, everything changes. You stop reacting automatically. You stop assuming every thought is the truth. Instead, you start filtering. Is this belief actually mine? Does this idea serve me, or have I just accepted it because it's familiar? And that's where freedom begins. Most people never reach this point. They go their entire lives without ever realizing they've been controlled. But once you wake up to it, you can't go back. You start seeing through the noise. You recognize when you're being manipulated. You stop letting outside voices dictate how you feel, what you believe, and who you become. But awareness is only the first step. Because knowing you've been manipulated doesn't free you from it. The real challenge is breaking the cycle, and that's what we'll dive into next. Realizing you've been manipulated is like waking up in a dark room and seeing the strings controlling everything around you. But here's the problem. Just because you see the strings doesn't mean you're free from them. In fact, this is where most people get stuck. They become aware that their thoughts aren't entirely their own, but they don't know what to do next. How do you unlearn a lifetime of programming? The first step? Disrupt the loop. Your brain thrives on repetition. If a thought is repeated enough times, it becomes automatic. That's why breaking free starts with disrupting those patterns. And the easiest way to do that? Change your inputs. Think about it. If you've spent years consuming the same kind of content, following the same kind of people, absorbing the same kind of messages, of course, your thoughts are going to follow the same pattern. You can't expect to think differently if you keep feeding your brain the same ideas. So here's a challenge. For the next 24 hours, do something radical. Unfollow people who reinforce negativity. Stop doom scrolling. Read a book or listen to someone whose perspective challenges yours. Your mind is like a sponge. It absorbs whatever it's surrounded by. And if you want to reshape your thinking, you have to be intentional about what you expose it to. But even that isn't enough, because the second you try to break free, something strange happens. Your mind fights back. Have you ever noticed that when you try to change, a voice in your head resists? It whispers things like, "This won't work," or "You're fine the way you are," or even, "What if you're wrong?" That voice? It's not you. It's the conditioning. It's the years of programming fighting to stay in control. Your brain craves certainty, and the moment you introduce uncertainty, it panics. It tries to pull you back into familiar patterns, even if those patterns are keeping you stuck. And that's why most people never escape, because they mistake that resistance for truth. They assume that if something feels uncomfortable, it must be wrong. But in reality, discomfort is a sign you're breaking free. It means you're stepping outside of the mental cage you've been trapped in. So the key isn't to avoid discomfort, it's to push through it. Every time you challenge an old belief, every time you question a thought that once felt automatic, every time you force yourself to sit with that discomfort instead of running from it, you take back control. You reclaim your mind. You decide who you are instead of letting the world decide for you. But there's still one final piece to this puzzle. Because even if you break free from the programming, there's something even more dangerous waiting for you. And if you don't see it coming, it can pull you right back in. So, you've started to break free. You've questioned your thoughts, disrupted the loop, and fought against the resistance. But just when you think you've made it out, something even more dangerous appears, the illusion of freedom. Here's what happens. You start seeing the manipulation everywhere. You recognize the way media, social platforms, and even people around you try to shape your thinking. And for a moment, you feel powerful. You think, "I've figured it out. I see the truth now." But that's the trap. Because realizing you've been manipulated doesn't mean you're suddenly immune to it. In fact, it makes you even more vulnerable, because now you believe you're too smart to be fooled. And that's exactly how the cycle continues. Instead of questioning everything, you start assuming you already have the answers. You build a new version of yourself, one that's still shaped by external forces, just different ones than before. Maybe you shift from one belief system to another, convinced this time it's the truth. Or maybe you become cynical, rejecting everything, thinking you've outsmarted the game. But here's the reality. True freedom doesn't come from thinking you have all the answers. It comes from realizing that questioning never ends. The moment you stop challenging your own thoughts, you're back under control. Just in a different way. So what's the solution? Stay in the mindset of a skeptic, not someone who doubts everything, but someone who questions before they accept. Instead of seeking certainty, get comfortable with uncertainty. Instead of labeling things as absolute truths, be open to the possibility that you might still be influenced in ways you don't see yet. Most people will never get to this point. They'll either stay in the illusion or fall back into old patterns. But you have a choice. You can either keep letting outside forces shape your mind, or you can take ownership of it. Not just once, but every single day. Because the truth is, no one is coming to save you from this. No one is going to do the thinking for you. You have to be the one who questions, who challenges, who decides what is real and what is manipulation. And once you take control, something incredible happens. You stop being reactive. You stop letting fear, doubt, and the noise of the world dictate your emotions. You stop being pulled in every direction by narratives designed to control you. You finally start living on your own terms. And that's where real freedom begins.